Knock, knock. Who's there? George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman, who? All right, good. You're on the jury. Nothing? That's funny. After what you folks have been through the last 2 or 3 weeks? Let's get on to, however, the serious business of why we're here.
Day 11. The 6 women have now heard both sides outline their case. We've heard language the judge refused to ban. We've seen tears. We've even heard, as you heard, a knock-knock joke. But the point both sides are trying to answer, was it self-defense or was it murder? Your live gavel-to-gavel coverage of the George Zimmerman trial continues right now. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jackie Brockington. Thanks so much for being back with us here for News 13 for the opening statements as part of our live coverage of the George Zimmerman murder trial coverage. News 13's Kelly Cook and legal analyst Mark NeJame have been monitoring all of this for us since court began this morning. We'll also introduce you to the rest of our team in just a few minutes, talking about those injuries the night Trayvon was killed, as well as what was said about the evidence this morning from Trayvon Martin's family attorney. Kelly?
Yeah, that's right. Before we heard any opening statements here, Jackie, we saw some fireworks in the very beginning as Judge Deborah Nelson started off by some business there, saying that the family for George Zimmerman had to leave the courtroom. The only one allowed to stay was Zimmerman's sister Gracie, who stayed in that courtroom. But the parents, who could be called as a witness, had to be asked to leave the courtroom. You see it right there on your screen. But what you didn't see was Trayvon Martin's parents leaving the courtroom. That's because there is a law in the book saying the family of the victim is allowed to stay in the courtroom and to listen to the testimony. Benjamin Crump, their attorney, however, was asked to leave. They'll be looking at that during this lunch hour to see if there is any case law that says he as well can stay in the courtroom. Well, as we finally got to opening statements, John Guy, a veteran of the state attorney's office there in Jacksonville for nearly 20 years, wrapped up his opening statements in just about 30 minutes or so. But during those words, what we saw there in the gallery was Trayvon Martin's parents showing a lot of emotion. Tracy Martin at times wiping away tears, Sabrina Fulton doing the same. At times, you could see her just kind of shaking and seeming emotional as they listened to them talking about their 17-year-old son, Trayvon Martin, just 21 days after his birthday, where he turned 17. But then after that, it's what we started this show off with, was what you guys have been talking about on Twitter, in our online chat at cfnews13.com/chat. It was how Don West, the defense, who has seen his fair share of big cases, Lou Pearlman, Doug Getzlow, he started off a little peculiar. Take a listen again.
Knock, knock. Who's there? George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman, who? All right, good. You're on the jury. Nothing? That's funny. After what you folks have been through the last 2 or 3 weeks? Let's get on to, however, the serious business of why we're here.
Did you see the prosecution's face? Bernie De La Rianda obviously rolling his eyes at that joke, didn't find it very funny. Let's bring our News 13 legal analyst Mark NeJame, who has been standing by here. And Mark, we have had 2 very different ways to present this case. It feels like the prosecution presented an opening statement that felt almost rehearsed and practiced. It seems like Don West was taking a much more relaxed, more conversational take on how he wanted to present his opening statement, and much more detailed.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Kelly. The state's opening, I thought, was excellent. It was powerful. It was concise. It hit home to the jurors. It was riveting. And we saw the defense. I think we expected similar from them, and we did not get that. We saw about an hour and a half right now, and I have to say that there were so many names, it sounded like every one of the 200 witnesses on the witness list was named in the opening argument. And Don West, who enjoys a spectacular reputation, just didn't seem to be able to get his arms around it, and it just it lost its listenership. You know, we learned from the Casey Anthony case where most viewers were not impressed with what we saw on TV from the defense team, but apparently the jurors were. So I'm very anxious to listen to somebody who's in the courtroom to see if the reaction of the jurors is different than, you know, everybody on my Facebook, everybody on my Twitter account. I mean, I've not heard one positive thing yet about the defense's presentation. And I have to say, as great as Don West, his reputation is, starting it off with a, look, he's not going to go on Saturday Night Live anytime soon. So starting this off with a knock-knock joke when you're dealing with a homicide case and a young man who's killed and another man fighting for his life, I just think it was a misstep. And it just, that's all I can tell you about it. It was just simply not the right move to make. And they will hopefully be able, from their perspective, be able to clean that up and fix it up. But I think there's been significant credibility lost. It showed that they were not, you know, I don't think that Don West had developed the rapport with the jurors where you can crack jokes. Look, we were often lighthearted with jurors. It's part of the, what you want to do as a good trial lawyer. But you have to work into that. And from the opening salvo coming in with a not very funny joke at the beginning of a homicide trial, I think it landed with a thud. And I'm being generous about that. And I think that they need to use this break. You know, you and I were communicating while this was going on and about whether the opening argument would be split. It rarely is. I think it was a godsend for the defense in this instance that it was in fact split. It allowed them time to regroup and hopefully get this thing focused, because it seemed to be rambling and it did not speak to the reputation that Don West enjoys.
Well, I'll admit it was definitely long, 90 minutes long. They have an hour lunch break here, Mark. Maybe there will be some adjustment there when he goes back and take a look at things, or maybe they like exactly how it's going, Mark.
I would expect that. I've got to believe that the lead attorney in this case, Mark O'Mara, and Don West are talking, and O'Mara is saying to him, look, you know, all these names you're throwing out, you're basically giving the whole closing argument, but you're doing it without passion, and these jurors are never going to remember all these names. You know, I mean, I can't even, probably a couple dozen names seem to have been mentioned during the course of that opening, and nobody can follow. They've not seen the evidence yet. I think that what this defense should have done is focused on a few of the key points, knock some of the state's positions out where they could have juxtaposed their position against what the state had been saying, and then come out strong with all the reasonable doubt areas that we've been hearing that they have all this time. We didn't hear that. We just heard a complete diatribe. It was just going on with names and circumstances and pauses and such. And again, it just does not speak to Don West's reputation. And I think they really need to use this lunch break to clean up an otherwise weak opening statement.
All right, thanks a lot, Mark. We'll be back with you in just a few minutes after this break.